I've been getting a lot of questions lately about winning versus development. I'm not sure why all of a sudden it's come to the forefront. Maybe because practices are starting, or the COVID sort of reaching its end. People are starting to ask this question. But I fielded it recently, and I thought I'd do a video on how I see this evolution of a player with respect to what I call the long game and the short game. So, travel baseball is this unique dynamic. It hasn't always been around, but very recently, travel baseball has created this interesting dynamic between coaches, parents, and players. And what it's done is it's made everyone sort of weigh the balance between money and players in uniform. And most parents realize, like, when you show up to a field and you see 10 players in uniform, with respect to your son's opportunities, that's a good thing, because there's only 10 players. There's a good chance my son is going to get an opportunity. So intuitively, parents like that. They like low numbers. But travel organizations need more numbers to make a profit. They can't exist without volume. So in their mind, you want more people on your bench, so you can create a more sustainable product. And then those two things are often in conflict with each other. How many opportunities can I give, and how much money can I make? And that's one of the challenges of travel baseball, how to balance those two things. So I just got some labels here to the side. I have T-ball, pony, midget, 13U, 16U. And it's really irrelevant. In travel ball, this would probably be like a 7 or 8U, a 10U, a 12U. But anyway, there becomes this dynamic. And I want to talk about winning versus development. Now, I need to say this. They're equally important. You can't promise, hey, we're going to develop your kids, and then also not play to win, because winning teaches. I mean, as a parent myself, I want my son in as many competitive environments as possible, and I want him winning those games. I want him learning how to win and what it takes, and I want coaches in his dugouts playing to win, because that's why we get suited up. We don't show up just to play 7 innings and go home. We show up to win. So if they're keeping score, we want to recognize that. But on the other end, if you're going to keep 13 players on your roster because financially that makes sense to you, you have to be willing to grow each of those 13 players. You can't say, well, winning is important, but to do that, we're going to dismiss player 12 and 13. I don't think you can do that. And we've had discussions about this. I do think that once you get past the age of 13, I think the baseball becomes more of a meritocracy, where your talents sort of dictate playing time. And that's why the funnel does in fact narrow. But as a coach, if you're going to keep 12 on your roster at the 10U level, you better be prepared to play 12 of them. So that's just something I want to talk about. Now, let's move in the direction of the short game. Let's talk about one weekend in particular, and why I think people get hurt. So if you ask baseball coaches, how do you win? What's the formula for winning? At some point, they're going to say pitching, defense, and timely hitting. That's what they're going to say. Which means that at the forefront of being a successful team, a successful organization, you got to have arms that can carry the day. And when you're playing what I call the short game, you show up for a weekend, a Saturday, Sunday venue. Potentially, you've got to win 6 games to bring home a championship. And that would be the short game. So one of the things that I'm always aware of when you enter these weekend venues, now we can really get down to the bare bones of winning versus development. And the irony behind the teams that win is that they emphasize development at the forefront of everything, that they are driven by a practice model, that many times the winning is a byproduct of investing time and energy on Tuesday night or Thursday night, So if you're in an organization that doesn't spend a lot of time practicing, potentially this weekend environment becomes contentious because that's the time that they see that they're going to practice. So that's something that I want to be aware of. All right, now let's just go back and revisit this idea of pitching. Okay, so in order to win a weekend tournament, you got to have enough arms. All right, well, every time I think about winning a weekend tournament, I think about something that I read called the habit loop, which is such a powerful idea. And this powerful idea, it makes things really difficult for coaches, is because all of a sudden some of the things that we do aren't conscious decisions. They're actually habits in our very nature. So I've gone on record as saying that as a travel coach or a coach of any kind, if you're not willing to quit the tournament, if you're not willing to literally walk away from a game, just pick up and say, we're out, we don't have enough arms, potentially you could do damage to someone. So this idea, this reward, return on your investment. Parents want these opportunities to play as many games as possible. If you talk to most parents, they'd say, yeah, we'd rather play 6 games than 5. We get more return on our investment. So return on our investment is this reward that sometimes makes these decisions not so much decisions as habit loops. And the other one is winning. Winning is a very, very powerful motivator that often compromises our decisions. So with respect to this short game, I just made reference to the fact if you get to game 6 up here and that's the championship, and you as a coach aren't willing to quit the game, potentially you could do damage to your arms. All right. The other thing that I want to talk about, the other warning signs are low numbers. If you're playing at a 16U and up level and you show up to your tournament with 10 or 11 bodies, there is a real chance that this habit loop is going to hurt someone's arm, that someone is going to be asked to do more than they're capable of doing. So low numbers is a warning sign. This idea of David versus Goliath, pulling this huge upset is also a warning sign. I've been a part of that on both sides, really, where, you're the heavy favorite and you see how excited the other dugout is to beat you, and they'll do almost anything in their power to do that. And then I've also been the underdog where, you get sucked into this mindset of pulling the upset. So David and Goliath scares me. And then the other one is this elite arm. If you really want to protect your pitchers and develop them for the long game and make sure they're healthy, you got to have a stable of arms. If you are the best pitcher on your team by far, there is a chance that you're going to be overworked. So one of the things that has to happen when you get up in here is parents have to accept the idea that POs become part of the deal, that pitcher only show up and they start to make these numbers go up. And sometimes that's disconcerting for mom and dad when, your son's 16, 17, and 18, and there's a bench size of 23, because then they start to question, where are my son's opportunities coming from? But it's really for the health of the pitcher. Each organization, each team needs high volume on that bench, so this one elite arm isn't asked to do more than he should. So when you're young, we don't have pitcher onlys. You show up, you play. 80-85% of the people on the roster can pitch, which sort of helps with pitching depth. But once you get to a certain level and money and numbers start to become this balancing act, parents need to realize that pitcher onlys do start to show up. They do start to show up so coaches don't feel like when they get to game 5 or 6 that they have to compromise a certain arm, because what absolutely happens, and if you're not aware of it, just look for it. But coaches and parents and players, we all get into these habit loops, and it all starts with the reward. And with respect to travel baseball, the rewards to me seem rather obvious. It's the return on your investment on a weekend event, and it's collecting the W at the end of the weekend.